Guys, okay, while waiting for your friends to come in, any one of you have any question regarding your assignment or your exam? Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and a very good morning. For Muslim, can we start with Kitab Al-Fatihah? Okay, before we begin, for those who are just in the room, can you log on to your Putra Blast and sign up your attendance, please? Okay. So as we discussed before, that some of you need some review on the requirement engineering, right? How to formulate the requirement because your your assignment is about to inspect the requirement. So you need to know what is a good requirement or how to formulate.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Uh, you forgot to record.
Oh yeah. I will record later a bit. Okay. Thank you very
Okay.
much for letting me know, Hazik. Thank you. So so we are now to learn about the requirement engineering. Okay. So if you have any questions, just let me know. In the middle of the lecture, it's okay, right? So this is more a bit relaxed. It's just something like my sharing my knowledge to you. But I hope that I can give you all the information because of, the slide that you see here is actually is something like a training or a workshop, a one-day workshop for formulating requirements. So I try to cover in 1 hour. So probably there is no activities because it should be an activities for formulating the requirement. But now it's just only yeah, some knowledge sharing or a lecture. Okay. But if you had any questions, just let me know. Then we can I can stop and we can discuss about it. Okay. Right. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay, I start to record the session. Probably takes a bit longer time. Okay. People who are removed because of the recording, can you log in back? I think Nur Aina, Farisha need to rejoin the meeting. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This is requirement engineering. So how to formulate requirement. So before you want to do inspection, so you need to have some training what is requirement, right? So this can be something like a training for the inspectors, right? So you need to have some knowledge or skill in order to formulate the requirement or to know what is the good requirement in order for you to inspect your own requirement and also after that do some an independent inspection of others' requirement. Okay, so this is this. Okay, sorry. So this is the agenda. This is a presentation, right? So we will go through requirement construct. So how to requirement construction, some of requirement templates that available, and what is the characteristic of a good requirement, the requirement of language criteria, requirement attributes, and also documentation overview. What is the documentation available? And then we will go through an overview only. It is not one by one, but we just go through the structure of the documentation, right? So first, requirement construct. Okay. So before we want to go for into more detail about requirement, we need to know what is requirement, right? So what is requirement is something uh, that translate or express the need, and it's associated with constraint and also condition, right? So translate or expresses a need and its associated uh, constraint, and also condition. So what is the meaning of constraint? What is the meaning of condition? We will discuss it a bit later, right? So it can be written. So requirement. When we say requirement, it can be written as a natural language, right? The software should be blah 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 blah. The software shall blah 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 blah. This is natural language, and also it can be some other form of language, right? So, for example, it can be what do you call that? Graphical notation, right? Like UML, all right? So that one also can be a requirement. Okay. So so natural language should include a subject, a verb, together with other elements necessary to adequately express the information content of the requirement. Okay, a requirement shall state the subject of the requirement, right? The system or the software, what shall be done, what it should be, right? Operate at which level or which condition, or a constraint of the system, right? So this is requirement. If it is in the natural language, you need to see that it should include a subject, right? A verb, right? What it should do, right? Together with other elements, shall state the subject. What is the condition of the subject? Sometimes you need to mention also, um, and then you need to mention also what is the subject, right? And what shall be done, what is the subject should do, right? And also the constraint, for example, what do you call that, the time constraint, right? Made For example, within 2 seconds, within 1 second, this is the constraint. Okay. Next, so what is condition, right? Condition is something that is measurable, qualitative or quantitative attribute that are stipulated for a requirement. So this is something like condition. If this happen, and what to do? It's something like event happen, or when you come to one condition, right? Like when the system receive the signal from the IoT devices, then what to do, right? This is some condition. Okay, they further qualify a requirement that is needed, provide attributes that permit a requirement to be formulated and stated in a manner that can be validated and verified. So the condition itself need to be something like measurable, right? When the system receive a, s- a signal, that is there is a human in the room, right? So you can have some signal that detect the movement of human, something like that. So that one is measurable. The condition itself at that time is measurable, right? And then and provide attribute that permit a requirement to be formulated and stated in a manner that it can be validated and verified. Okay, so this is something like a condition. So requirement uh, can have a condition there, and then if there is a condition, then the condition should be measurable and can be validated, and also can also be verified. Okay, and then you can also have some constraint, the restriction of that requirement, right? So, for example, restrict the design solution or implementation of the system engineering processes, may apply across all requirements, may be specified in a relationship to a specific requirement or set of requirements, may be identified as standalone requirement, right? So requirement also can have some constraints. As I mentioned to you before, constraints, for example, is the time, right? The limitation of people who are using the system, right? For example, in the maximum user is 1,000 user per session, something like that, right? Or per hour, or per second, something. So this is about the constraint of the requirement. Okay, so requirement can have condition, right? Also can have constraint. Okay. So example of constraint is interfaces to already existing system. This is also constraint, right? Sometimes you are not developing a system that is standalone. Sometimes it's dependent on other system or existing system, right? Some or legacy system, legacy database, and so on. So this is the constraint that you need to put in your requirement if you have dependency of other system. So this is the requirement in your system. You need to specify this constraint, right? So physical limitation, size limitation, like for example, the picture, the user can upload their picture, right? But the picture size should be around not more than 50K, something like that. Okay, so this is size limitation. If it is there is a law in particular country, right? So available duration or budget, right? So this is for 30 days. The user can appeal the application, right? The rejected application, something like that. This is the duration. So pre-existing technology platform, right? So for example, your system you need to be developed only in Java because all of your staff know Java, and then after that the new system that is developed should be in Java platform. Okay, so user or operator capabilities and limitations. So this is some constraint that you can put, some of the constraint, some of the example of constraint in your requirement. Okay, so this is requirement construct. So well formed specified requirement contain one or more. Okay, one or more. It's not all should be in requirement, but it should be contain one or more of this. What do you call that? This attribute. So it shall be met or possesses a system to solve a problem, achieve an objective, right? Here, achieve an objective and address a stakeholder concern, meaning that a requirement is something that from the user, right? User give to solve a user problem, achieve an objective, or address a stakeholder concern. It should be something that it's truly requirement from the user or the thing that you the problem that you want to solve. Okay, another one is it should be quantified by measurable condition. So if you have condition, then the condition itself should be measurable, right? For example, the signal from system X, that is something that is measurable, right? Then another one is bounded by constraint, right? You have constraint there, right? The system should respond in 20 seconds, right? So the page should be displayed less than 5 seconds, less than 2 seconds, something like that. Okay, so defines the performance of the system, right? It sometimes same with this one, right? You can also have a constraint, a performance constraint, but you can also define the performance of the requirement itself and can be verified. The requirement can be verified. It's not that requirement something, as I mentioned to you before, something system can be the system should be fast, the system should be used by a lot of people. That one is the thing that is not really measurable or really verified, right? You how you can verify fast, because fast for me is 5 seconds, probably fast for you is 2 seconds, right? And then a lot of people, for me 10,000 of people is a lot, and then some of you probably saying that, oh, that not a lot, 100,000 of people is a lot. So that one, that number should be there as a constraint or as a performance for the system. That can be verified. Okay, so a common approach, right, to stipulate requirement are the following. Requirement are mandatory binding, right? Provision use of shall, right? So if you see the shall, this is something that is mandatory, right? It is not something like we think that must, something like that. But normally, In a formal documentation, shall indicate mandatory, meaning that the requirement must be fulfilled. So we use shall. For example, the system shall respond to the user uh, request in 2 seconds, something like that, right? So shall meaning that this is mandatory requirement. So non-requirement such as descriptive text, sorry, use verbs such as are, is, was, right? Is not using this one, right? But if it is non-requirement, right? If something that just to describe something in your requirement, because sometimes you need to have description, you need to describe something in your requirement, but this is not requirement actually. You need to use is, are, right? Is, are, was, and so on. Don't use the term must and also the term of this one that you will something that make the user or make the reader confused, right? Use positive statement, avoid negative uh, requirement. Don't use because normally we put it shall, right? Shall meaning that shall meaning that the one is mandatory, and then not the thing that not mandatory you put it shall not. So this is not a good practice, right? Please avoid the negative uh, statement. Only use the positive one. If you want to put it shall not, you can give something like an option. You can give must or should or something like that. Should is a bit um, less strict or less mandatory than the shall, right? Or shall. Active voice, okay. Use a uh, uh, avoid using passive voice. So you know how to formulate sentence, right? You can have active, right? Can have passive, right? Remember that, guys. Passive and also active.
Yeah, yes.
Yes, right. So example for passive, uh, like Ali doing something, right? And then passive is the thing has been done by Ali, something like that. So avoid using passive, right? Normally you should use the active voice. So requirement templates. So have you learned about requirement templates before?
It's like SRS document.
Sorry,
Is it
Haji?
SRS document?
Yeah, the SRS document. So do you have learned about the requirement template itself?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, good. So this one is just a revision. Okay. So we have maybe numbers of templates, right? So, but for this, I just want to show you a template from the IEEE. So, an example in IEEE, right? 291, ISO 29148, right? This is some sample of requirement syntax. Okay, you can have a requirement showing that first condition, and then after that specify the subject, specify the action of the subject, what is the object, the one who received the action, right? And also the constraint. So this is a function. It can be one template. For example, when signal X is received, this is condition. Okay, the system, the system is the subject who are doing the later action, right? Shall set, okay, he subject will set this one, right? So this is the action. Shall set this signal X receive bit, right? So what is the object? Is the receive bit, right? Within 2 seconds. This is the constraint. Okay. It can be also if you have a condition and you have an action or constraint and you have a a value. If it is this is the case, so you need to use this template. So for this template, something like condition at C state 1, the radar system shall detect target at range out to. So this is the action. So the system shall detect targets at ranges out to 100 nautical miles. This is the value. Okay. So in the event that you don't have any condition, right? So the system have to do something, right? So you want to specify the system do something, then you can use this subject, action, and also value, right? If you have a requirement that it involve condition when something happen, then you can choose either this one or this one. However, if you don't have any condition that permit you to do this one, but the requirement saying that the system should do something, then you can have this one, right? You can have this template. So something like the invoice system shall display pending customer invoices in ascending order, in which invoices are to be paid, meaning that this is the subject, right? The invoice system. Then you can have the action that the display the customer invoice, and then also in ascending order is the value. Okay. Okay, guys. This is IEEE, oh sorry, ISO 29148, right? 2018. This is the latest version that I've taken this sample, and then you can also have years. This is a requirement template. Another requirement template uh, that available that it has have something like ubiquitous. It seem like this one, right? The subject, action, and value. And then you can have event driven when something happen. It's same with this one, right? The condition when something happen, what to do, right? And then the state in the state of this one while doing this, right? While doing this thing, and then after that, another thing going to have in the background or something. So it's a state driven unwanted behavior if something happened, right? This is probably something like unwanted, an error happened or something. If trigger this one, and then after that the system shall do what, right? So and also the optional one, this is the optional requirement, right? The where this one system will do this one. So this also a requirement template, but with five what call that characteristic. If you have ubiquitous, then this is the template. If you have event driven, this is the template. State driven, this is template. If anything happen or unwanted behavior happen, then this is the template. And if it is optional, and this is the template. You can find this. You can try to understand the example here, right? For example, the kitchen system shall have an input hatch. For optional, where the kitchen system has a food freshness sensor, where meaning that where the kitchen system has a food freshness sensor, meaning that there are conditions that some kitchen system don't have it, right? So this is optional. Okay. Next is the requirement templates by Roop, right? So this is something like the system shall do something, and then what is the activity, then this is the type of the requirement. So this is the independent system activity. This is more towards the user interaction. This is more towards the interface of interface requirement, right? So, for example, the system shall be able to notify the IT system of the contractor garages regarding the vehicle location, right? So the system shall is here to notify the IT system. What called, should be able, shall be able. This is this one, right? The contracted garages regarding to the vehicle location. This is be able to do something, right? Okay. Next, this is three, the one that we already know or normally used for the SRS, right? Normally we have SRS, but in the event that we use Agile, this is an Agile template, right? Something like as a person, as the administrator, I want to delete the user so that the user will be the list of user will be updated, right? So what is the benefit of the action that I have made, right? Example here, one another example is as a teacher, I want to update grades online so that I no longer depend on administrator to do it for me, right? And then remember that normally we need to have something like shall, the one that bind, the one that put the mandatory requirement, right? But for agile software development, the uh, they may use any alternative formations, right? Any alternative formations such as user story without explicitly using the term shall or shall. Okay, so for agile it's a bit different. They are not binding on the mandatory of the word mandatory for that, right? So you can use some agile user story structure in order to have a requirement. Okay, so I think this is not usable in your assignment. So more probably you are more towards the more traditional requirement templates that you have there. Okay, so characteristic of a requirement. So this is important because I think so. You need to prepare for the checklist. So this is the thing that can be used as your checklist. Okay, so each stakeholder system element requirement shall possesses the following characteristics. So the requirement should be necessary, appropriate, unambiguous, complete, singular, feasible, verifiable, correct, and conforming. So this is 9 things that you need to see, right? The characteristic of a requirement, okay? Of individual requirement. Sorry, I need to highlight this. Individual requirement. One requirement, one requirement, one requirement. One requirement is a individual requirement. It's not a group of requirement because you can have a function that have a group of requirement under that function. But this is we are talking about one requirement itself, the individual requirement. Okay, so for example, req underscore one underscore srs and then you have the system blah 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 blah, the system shall do something and so on, right? So that one is the individual requirement. Okay, so requirement have to have this characteristic. It should be necessary, appropriate, unambiguous, and so on. So but we will go through this more detail. So what is necessary? The requirement define essential capability, characteristic, constraint, or quality factor. The requirement currently applicable, not being made obsolete by passage of time, right? So should be necessary because sometimes you have to ask the organization, is it this will stay longer? Is it this requirement will stay uh, yeah for the operation for 5 years? No, this requirement is just for 2 or 3 months. Then after that, it will be not usable anymore. So it is not a necessary requirement actually, right? Because it will be taken by time. Okay, so we need to know that the requirement is a really necessary requirement. Requirement with planned expiration dates, right, or applicability dates are clearly defined, right? So this, like for example, this requirement is for the usage of 2020 only during the COVID-19, something like that, right? Okay. Next is this is the example. All desktop PC for the project must be configured with 512 megabyte memory, DVD, ROM, CD, RW, multifunction drive, and is it all have to all of the PC need to have this configuration, right? But you need to be more specific by the desktop PC for the developer. It's not for the project. It's for only for the developer must have this configuration, right? So it not necessary to have all PC in the project to have this configuration, PC configuration, right? So you need to specify that, yeah, it's only necessary for the developer. It's not all, because probably in the web base you need to have a lower version of PC or workstation for the user, right? It's not like a developer that they needs a lot of computation, a good uh, PC to develop the system. Appropriate, right? Specify intent, amount of detail, right? So avoid unnecessary constraint on the architecture or design while allowing implementation independence to the extent of to the extent possible. All right. So try to avoid some constraint on the architecture or design, right? Because you need to allow more independent. Okay. But if it is not avoidable, meaning something like the design of the system should use the model view controller, then yeah, you cannot avoid that, because that one is the needs of your architecture of the system. Okay, unambiguous, right? The requirement is stated in such a way so that it can be interpreted only one way, right? It is not in two ways or three ways or other ways, right? So ambiguous, I think a lot of people know that. So and then requirement should be complete, sufficiently describe the necessary capability, characteristic, constraint, and also quality factor as complete as it can, right? Because normally a lot of people think about function, right? The system shall do this, 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 and this, but they didn't put the quality factors there. Something like performance, something like what call that safety or security or something like that. Because user don't know this. Normally the user give you all the things. Okay, I want the system to be something like this. I want the system to be something like this. I want the system to be something like this. And then the role of the system analyst, or the one who collect the requirement, need to ask back to the user saying that, okay, you want to have this function, you have to have this function, and then can you give me the performance? Is it 2 seconds is okay for you? If the system respond in 2 seconds, they say that no, it should be 0.5 seconds. But you know that 0.5 seconds is unachievable. You cannot do that, right? Because the computation is really, really, for example, the computation of the probably the loan calculation is really complex, for example. And then you know that the system probably can respond in 1 second or 2 seconds. Then you have a negotiation with the user, right? So how about 1.5 seconds? Because 0.5 seconds is almost impossible, right? Because we have only bought we have only budget to buy a really a small server. It's not a really big server, something like that. Okay? So negotiation should be there, and but the one that I want to highlight here is you need to ask back, you need to enhance the requirement to put all the constraint, to put the quality factor inside the requirement, because normally the user know only the functionality that they want. Okay. Singular. Okay. The requirement state, okay, the individual requirement should state single capability, right? Meaning that one requirement stated only one requirement. It is not something that one requirement with one identification. There are a lot of requirement inside that requirement. It is not singular. It's not single, right? So, for example, the system shall uh, the system shall receive application uh, from the applicant, uh, and then you also put, and also applicant from what call it, the system also can receive the request uh, from the workers for what I call that, for leave, something like that, because this is application of the system, probably application of loan, something like that. And then you can you also extend the application of the workers leave inside one requirement. So this is not a single one, even though you can uh, differentiate between this requirement and another one is another requirement, but the requirement should be singular, one requirement uh, per what call it, individual requirement, right? Okay, but although a single requirement consists of single function, quality constraint, it can also have multiple condition, right? It can be multiple condition in one requirement, but it should be related to that requirement. It's not something that two requirement that can be separated, right? You can give a condition and so on, because this is to strengthen the requirement itself. If this one is happen, then do this one. If this one happen, it will do this, right? Something like one requirement inside one requirement. Okay, feasible. It can be realized by the system, right? In term of cost, in term of schedule, and also in term of technical. It's something. It is not something that is really hard to achieve, right? It is also depending on the system itself. Like let's say the system is small, but you are requiring but the user give a really high requirement to be a really fast, be a high computation and so on. But yeah, you will just buy and you have limited cost, then you cannot that requirement is not feasible. Okay, verifiable, right? You can test it, right? You know how to test that requirement. It's verifiable, something like also testable, right? So each page of the system will load in acceptable time frame. So do you think that you can test this, right? Acceptable. What is acceptable, right? It should better something like this. Register student and enroll courses pages of the system will load within 5 seconds. So you can test this, right? You have a constraint this, right? 5 seconds. This is the performance factors there. So this one have a performance factors, but it is not testable. Okay, correct, right? So the requirement should be accurate presentation, right? So it should be correct, right? And also conforming, right? This is conform to some standard. For example, the company say that okay, we follow the ISO or IEC 29148. Then you have to refer to 9148. The structure of the requirement should conform with this. The requirement should conform with that requirement structure. For example, this one, right? So if they say that, okay, we use this template, then you need to see whether the requirement that they devised or created is conforming to that template or not. Okay. So this is the set of requirement. So a set of requirement. So you can have something like one function. Under one function, you have a lot of requirement, individual requirement. So the requirement, a set of requirements should be complete, consistent, feasible, right? Comprehensible, and able to be validated. Okay, so the set of requirement should be able to validate it or testable, comprehensible. You can understand it. Is it feasible or not to achieve that, and also consistent, right? And also complete. Okay, so complete. What is complete, right? Is sufficient describe the necessary capability, characteristic, constraint without needing further information. So the requirement is complete. All the information is there. You no need to ask back the owner of the requirement, let's say the user, can you elaborate more about this? No. The statement, the requirement statement should be complete. Should be all information is there. Does not contain. You will find this when you work. You will find something, a lot of this statement to be defined. The requirement will be to be defined later, or to be specified by someone, or to be resolved in version blah 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 blah. No, you cannot do that. If you finalize a requirement, this should not be in your final document of the requirement. Okay. Improve completeness, right? So this is the how to improve that. So complete a professor user will log into the system by providing his username, password, and other related information. Is it complete? I don't think so, because what is other relevant information? It's not specified. It's not complete. The one that you need to put it here, like is a professor user will log into the system by providing username, password, and department code. Only these three things complete, right? Or if you have something else, then you have to put it here. It's not something that other relevant information. What are the relevant information? Okay. Consistent contains individual requirements that are unique, do not conflict, right? Should be not conflict with other requirements. Okay, so the usage of terminology, the unit and measurement should be homogeneous, right? For example, one requirement, you say that the car uh, should accelerate 20 kilometer per hour when when the signal A is through, something like that. So 20 kilometers per hour. Another requirement, you mentioned that the car should accelerate 200 miles per hour. So now it's miles per hour. It is not kilometer per hour anymore. So it is not consistent, right? So if you use kilometer per hour, make sure that all measurement the same, right? It is not something like you use kilometer per hour or even meter per second, right? The same metrics, but you have different measurement. Okay. So terminology used within the set of requirements should be consistent, right? The same requirement, what call that terminology. So this is the example, right? Consistent and unambiguous. I think you can see it later. Should be feasible. It can be realized, right? Technically, cost and also schedule. It will not take a lot of times, right? It within the budget, right? So in technical, it can be done, right? Sometimes it's not technical that you know that this technology will probably introduce in in next year. So this is something that uh, cannot be realized because it next year, and it is, yeah, sometimes you don't know whether the platform will be okay or not, right? So comprehensible, it is clear to what is expected, right? So you can understand the set of requirement, and then able to be validated, right? It's practicable. It can be uh, it can be it can be yeah, you can practice that, okay, and also you can validate that. Okay, so we have covered the individual requirement, a set of requirement. Then this is, we want to go through a bit depth on the language of requirement. Okay, so I just go through a bit fast, right? So the following type are unbounded and or ambiguous, right? So this is the word that are ambiguous. Not all the times, but mostly if you use this, you will introduce ambiguous requirement statement, right? So the usage of the best, the most, something like that. Most of the user will do this one. It should be the best if, yeah, something. You Why you want to put it? It should be the best if blah 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 blah. It should be something like the system shall do. Just go for mandatory. It is not something that advisable, this is the best, or most of the student, don't put most of the student. The student shall just give the mandatory. Okay. Subjective language, something. This is a lot. I what to call that? I get I face this requirements quite a lot. Is something like the user interface should be user friendly. So what is user friendly, right? The system should be easy to use. Easy. I don't know, because some people are really good in using computers, so for them it's easy. For other people, it's not easy, right? So it is cost effective. How? What is the cost effective for you? And for me, cost effective is a bit different, right? Vague. To it, to this, to that. Specify the subject or the object that receives the action, right? Ambiguous term, right? Almost always, significant, minimal, something like or and slash or. This is something like ambiguous term in term of language. So you have to go through one by one, try to see all. This is the indicators of ambiguous or type of unbounded sentences or statement, right? Open-ended, provides support but not limited to, as a minimum. This is, yeah, I I I I see a lot of this, right, in requirement, because a lot of people sometimes just have an idea, but they don't have a really detailed idea of what they want, right? So this is the role of the system analyst to ask back, to make sure that all the information or all the requirement statement are complete, right? Comparative phases better than, higher quality, some loophole if possible. This, if possible, the system should do this as appropriate as applicable, right? And then the terms that imply totality, all, right? All systems should blah blah blah. But sometimes you cannot use all, because there are some exception that the system will behave differently, right? So always, never, every. So and then incomplete references, right? So not specifying reference, its dates, and also version number, right? Requirement attributes. Okay, so you need to see the requirement, right? Attribute of the requirement, it should have identification, right? So unique identification, SRS underscore function one underscore something like that, version one. So this is the identification. Requirement should have identification, right? So something like uniquely identify. If we refer to, okay, we refer to requirement 1.1, so you can have this one, right? So if this one, if we say that we refer to requirement one, this is also one, and also this is also one. So it should be a unique identifier there, right? See your documentation. The requirement should be uniquely identified and easy to refer. Okay, version number. It is good to have a requirement have, or also have a version. Individual requirement also have a version, right? For example, SRS underscore one underscore FR, functional requirement underscore one and underscore one. The last one is the version of that requirement. So the requirement should be a version number, and the documentation or the document itself also should have a version number. You should also have the owner of the requirement, who are responsible to give that requirement, and then who is the person that we can refer if anything happened with the requirement. Okay. Stakeholder priority, the priority of requirement. Sometimes some requirement have low priority, high priority, very high priority. So you can have you need to inspect whether priority is what do you call it, stated in the requirement or not. Risk, right? The risk level of the requirement, high risk, low risk, medium risk, something like that. So it's stated in the requirement. So, and then also the rationale. If you think that the requirement have some controversial, so you need to put rationale why this requirement is stated there. Okay. Difficulty of on how to execute the requirement and also type of requirement, right? So then example of requirement, functional performance, right? Interface requirement, process requirement, and also quality or non-functional requirement. So and also usability, quality in use requirement. So this is the type of example of requirement attribute, right? Okay, so that's all for requirement for individual. So this is something like document overview that if you use 830, this is the information should be there in the SRS. So this is the kind of the outline of the IEEE 830-1998 of SRS. So in this, they have something SRS. URS also use this one, or BRS also something like this. Okay, but if you use this, right, the ISO 29148, they have something like organization. They put a focus on organization environment, business operation, system operation, and also the software itself. So and then they produce something like STRS. This is STRS. So STRS can be the URS and also the BRS. You can have SYRS and also SRS. So this is the BRS. So in 29148 2018, the BRS template should have something like this, the topic inside the BRS, the business purpose, business scope, and so on. So business environment. This is the BRS template. Okay. Another one is the stakeholder requirement specification. What is the stakeholder purpose? More towards the organization of the business itself, right? And also they have something like SYRS, system requirement specification. It is the whole system, including the hardware and also the software, and also the software itself, the SRS, software requirement specification. So this is the template or the outline of the SRS. Thank you very much. Sorry for a bit fast at the end because we don't have much time. Do you have any questions, guys?
No, no, sir.
I hope this
No.
fine for you. All right, so you can try to make a checklist based on this one, and then I will upload this in your Putra Blast. Okay, thank you very much, guys. If you don't have any questions, but it's already 9. If you have any question, you can stay. But if you don't have any questions, so we will see you inshallah on Friday for your exam at 9 o'clock. At 8 o'clock in the evening, or yeah, at night. Okay, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Bye.
Bye.